Welcome back to another episode of a very basic space program. So last time we visited Mars, which now means that we have missions available for Venus, Mars and Mercury orbit, Venus and Mars atmosphere, and we've got landing missions available for Venus, Mars, Mercury, and also we've got the 2 moons of Mars. So that's something we need to think about, but we do have some missions going today. We're going to go to Venus. We're going to send some craft off to Venus. So we're going to probably just do that in this episode, and then we'll get the ending of it in another one. And we're sending those Discovery craft that we've already developed. We are also in the middle of building Discovery 9 and 10. Discovery 9 and 10 will be going to Jupiter ideally, and we can see that the Jupiter window is in 152 days. I've actually got the 2 craft that are going to be going to Venus they're rolling out right now. We've got 1 day something and 2 days something. So they're going to be out ready for that Venus window, and we'll be able to basically launch them and send them as quickly as possible is the idea. As soon as they roll out, we'll launch one, get it going, and then the second one we will launch probably about 24 hours before that perfect window and send that off again. Now the big problem with this, those are just taking new science equipment. They're not aiming to actually orbit. To orbit, we're going to have to do some more stuff, and that also leads me on to the next point, which is I've been having a look at other windows here. So if we have a look at Neptune, Saturn, Uranus, you can see that we have actually got we've got windows coming up. Now they will come up every year, but sometimes it's worth actually having a look. So let's go and see, is there anything in the next couple of years? That's what we really want to look at. So we can change this to, let's see, earliest departure, year 17. We're basically year 17 now. Let's look for the next, next couple of years. Is there anything in the next 3 years? Let's go 174. So that's exactly 3 years from now. Is there anything that we would be interested in? We want to look at, say, Saturn first. That's a good idea. And we're going to plot that. We don't want to insert, so we're going to put no insertion burn. Let's plot it. What have we got? Right. We have a nice one. Where's that? Let's see. If we put that up, it's going to depart 68, which would be, I think, that window. Let's get rid of that one. In fact, let's get rid of all of them. Uranus, Neptune, all of them. So this one's going to be the nicest. There could be one there, though. Let's actually go to year 20. Will that let me do that? And we'll go to 18. Let's plot that. Okay, that's going to be 7,000. What was that one? It was 7,000. But that is a quicker transit. You can see on the left here we have travel time in days. That is a quicker transit time there. So if we just replot that, yeah, and it's suggesting it. So we're gonna put that into our alarm clock. We can see that's in about 2 years. Right, that's Saturn. What about Uranus? Let's plot that one. Okay, so that again has got a quicker transit time. You can see there's a drift downwards, and that's possibly to do with inclination or just general positions of not perfectly circular orbits, things like that. Somebody comment down below, tell me the potential reason for that. It does look as though it's drifting downwards. We could go again and have a look, but I don't know. Let's turn this back to 17 and plot it. Oh, let's see, we go. That's actually worked, doesn't it? So you can see they're pretty consistent, nothing major. That does think that was the best one, so we're going to add that alarm there. That's one there. We could also put an alarm in there just in case. Where's that going to say? Uranus in 500 days. That's a potential, because if we've got a craft big enough at that point to go to Jupiter again, that is a possible one. Right, so that's Uranus. So then we've got Neptune. Let's plot that one. Okay, Neptune, this is the bit I like, this bit here. So let's turn that to 20 and plot that. Yeah, this down here looks really nice because it is a lot quicker. So what if I do, can I zoom in? That would be about, if I change this to 18 to 19, plot that. Yeah, look, there we go. That's a nice little region just there that we could have. We'll have it about there, and we'll add it in there. So that Neptune one potentially would save us from where they were, possibly a year, 2 years transit time, possibly more actually. So it would actually potentially make it worthwhile launching then than the year before. So that's going to be in 3 years' time. We could send earlier if we need to, but those are going to give us our markers for our targets at least. That would mean that we'll be setting off in about 1970. We're looking at 70, 69, 70, 71, something like that. Yeah. Right, so that's those done. Now, We're going to launch a Venus craft. I'm going to launch one of them, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about some development plans I have. So let's get to the launch pad. Let's fast forward this and get a launch done, I think. Alright, so here we are on the launch pad. We're just preparing for launch, and I thought I'm going to show you this launch so we can talk a little bit about comments that people have had and feedback and just general things like that, because I want to try and get some of your comments in and discuss them. I'm going to just set this off. So engines a go, set this off we go. So first of all, first comment was about these solid rocket boosters and the fact that they cling on, partly to do with the fairings and things like that. Yeah, I'm gonna try, and I have tried on I think the next version of this rocket to actually reposition those decouplers. I'm also wondering whether it's actually worth us changing the position of the decouplers or changing the decouplers entirely. So that's an option there. What else have we got? Well, there was an interesting comment about, why have you sent a craft to Mercury with RTGs? You could just use solar panels, and you are correct. I could have put solar panels on. I could also be doing that for this mission. I could actually rip the RTGs off and put solar panels on. A couple of reasons for it. Number one, I have developed this probe with RTGs. So putting solar panels on, I would potentially want to put more battery on. I'd potentially want to basically allow them to have more battery on storage, and that would not be a negative. It would be a use of extra mass. However, I do have this paranoia about we come into Venus and we are on the dark side. Now, I could fix that by just making sure that our approach to Venus was on the light side. However, being on the light side of Venus potentially cuts off signal to Earth. So it's a bit of a catch-22 on that one. I like the fact that the RTGs are not light dependent. I really do. And the fact that the craft's already built like that, I can imagine us just reusing this craft multiple times because we've already got it developed. Is it probably the best way of doing it? Probably not. I think particularly if we're trying to build specific launch vehicles for specific targets. So if we were building a specific Venus-based craft, I would have solar panels on them as much as possible. Particularly Mercury would just be solar panels because the efficiency there is crazy. The second you get anywhere outside that, like Mars, it starts to get a little bit more tricky, and that I think is probably where this thing wins out, and the fact that I've just wanted to build the one probe type. Will I continue with this mindset? Possibly, actually. I like the idea of building a multi-purpose probe that we can send to different places. We're looking at orbital craft now. Now, we're potentially going to be looking at sending craft to orbit, Vesta, Ceres, Mars, Venus. Those are the four that I would be looking at. Can I put an orbital craft around? In that case, I have to ask myself, what do I design it for? Do I design a completely separate craft for Venus? And maybe I do. Maybe that's what I should be doing. I should maybe be doing that. But if I'm building a craft that's pretty much going to be general purpose for Mars, Ceres, and Vesta, the only issue with that more mindset actually is that Ceres takes quite a bit more to circularize around than Mars and Vesta. I think I need to check. We'll do that. We'll do that possibly in this episode or in another one. That's the only problem. So that may mean that I have to build a different orbital craft for Ceres, or postpone that until we get better craft. In which case, that would probably promote me building a specific Venus craft. The other potential would be if we're going to Venus orbit and we want to put a lander on the craft, in which case I would build an orbiter and a lander, and then we would probably be looking at solar power on the orbiter, because it would make sense. It would have to be an entirely different craft. We're not going to send the same lander to Mars and to Vesta and places like that as we are to Venus, because Venus has got a very different atmosphere. So that's possibly where things would be going different, and it would be really good to. Well, we can't do that because we go outside the atmosphere. It'd be good to get your feedback on that, on whether you like the reuse of design technology and things like that. Like these upper stages, for example, we're just using the same upper stage for pretty much all of these Discovery launches. Have had the same upper stage up until Discovery 9, which will be the first of a new generation of upper stage, because we've got our Hydrolox upper stage. But even then, the rest of this craft below it is although it's been sort of uprated and improved, it's not been changed much. There's not a massive change going on there. We've just changed and put a high energy upper stage on. So there's that there as well. I am reusing a lot of launch vehicles. We've basically just had two major orbital launch vehicles that we've adapted. We've gone from first satellite to interplanetary missions and landing on the moon with pretty much, I think, just 2 different launch vehicles, which is sort of in line with what the Russians and the Americans did. They just evolved them instead of revolutionized them. I do think we need to look at building a heavy lift vehicle. Whether I should use the N1 engines for that, or whether we should use some like NK9s or something like that, I am not entirely sure about just yet. That will be something we have to decide on in the near future, but at the moment I'm not really in the mood to do that. There we go. We've got quite an interesting orbital thing going on here. I'm going to slow us down a little bit, and this could be quite a nice orbit actually. I've said that now, I've jinxed it. It's all going to go horribly wrong. We've got about a minute left on this. No doubt what will actually happen is that I'll overcook it, and then we'll just not get into orbit, or I'll have to use this stage to get into orbit, because some of my launches for this have been terrible actually. And the interesting thing is that I think for this series of Discovery missions, they seem to be a lighter probe, interestingly, which has allowed us to actually have reasonably okay launch profiles, because we have actually had quite the range of bad launch profiles previously, where we were having to use this stage to actually get the final push into orbit. But these seem to be doing okay. This is going to be potentially a close one. This is probably going to be the one that proves me wrong and shows that I'm talking gibberish. So we're just going to pop that up a little bit. I want to pull that down. I'm trying to keep this here just by moving onto the marker a little bit. Pop it up a little bit more. Right. We're going to be getting close. Are we going to cut out before orbit is the question. It's going to be tight. And we couldn't have got closer. Now the interesting thing here is there are residuals in this tank, and these are going to continue to push. So this potentially will put us into orbit. Yeah, I think it is actually going to push us into orbit. So what are the residuals? Yeah, we've got a little bit of residual. Now, this is something I really wanted to show previously. These are angled slightly backwards. So there's a little bit of push backwards, but mainly to the side. That's how they do because this is an RCS control system type thing, instead of burn off from the exhausts. So this has been used for our gimbal control, but because of that, it's not obeying the residuals rules. So it's actually going to use all these residuals. And you can see it's actually pumping us up. We're getting a good bit of extra sort of circularization out of this. So I was right, this wasn't the most perfect of launch, but we've managed, because of those residuals, to get actually into a reasonably nice launch profile. You can see 0.16 degrees off the moon is not bad at all. So we can close down the rendezvous planet now. I'm tempted to just let this go. There we go. And there we go. It's now down past the residual. So that's obviously the residual point for the little side thrusters there is different. So we're going to decouple. There we go. And now we just need to plan our maneuver. So I'm going to bring up the maneuver thing and we'll plan it, and I'll be right back with you. I have set up our maneuver using the maneuver planner, and you can see it's actually quite annoying. We're literally a quarter of an orbit beyond the maneuver node, so we're going to have to come all the way back around. So it is going to be a 58 minute or something like that wait for this launch. One thing to note with this actual little maneuver planner thing, if you're going to use it, first of all, ASAP, as soon as possible, so that will do it in the next orbit or so. Lowest delta V, we could do that if we were going to sit. If this was hypergolics, we could just sit in orbit until we got to something really juicy like that. This burn is actually tiny for us. It's a massive overkill, this upper stage. If I could actually, reduce this upper stage down and put something more on here, we could potentially get orbit with this. So that is something to maybe look at. I don't know. One of the things I want to do is actually, and I'll talk about it after we've launched this. In fact, I'll talk about it after we've launched this. So let's get along to that departure burn and see what happens. I will fast forward to it and we'll get this departure going. Right, here we are on the dark side of the planet. You can see we're actually facing slightly towards the ground there. I think what we may do is actually do an execute node here and get it to do it for us. I think we're going to be cheeky. I notice that we do not have signal right now, so technically the computer is doing this, it's not us. So maybe we'll just do that. We'll maybe just get the old execute node on. There we go. Come on, see if it does it. Should take it right to the minute. There we are. Slows down. We've actually gone too far past it. Will it turn on the engines? Will it? There we go. It's now ullaging, and then we'll fire that engine and off it goes. Wonderful. Now, I actually had an interesting comment again by someone about using the stage for orientating the craft and things like that when it was pretty much empty. Yeah, I you know what? I hold my hand up. Yeah, sometimes I will keep things attached because I have something in my head. For example, I was thinking of using this for doing a correction burn when there's far more than enough delta V on this for the minor correction that needed in that previous episode. I can't remember which one it was. Was it the Mercury one? I think it was. And we used this to do some changes when we have RCS and things on here. We'd actually use the RCS on here, and we were just basically hauling around this for a little tiny bit of delta V, which in the end was pretty pointless actually. It wasn't a great use of the old delta V. So yeah, not the best idea in the world. I do make mistakes. That's the big one, I have to say, and it does help when you tell me about them and remind me about them, because it means that, you know, I rethink things. I start going, you know what, no point dragging this around if I don't need it. So for example, when this burn is finished, we're getting rid of this, even though we're going to be leaving, you know, a couple of thousand. I think we're probably going to leave at what, 1,500, 1,700 meters per second in the tank. It means we didn't have to retool this, we didn't have to change our launch vehicle. If that launch had gone badly, this thing could have actually got us into a circular orbit as well, and then also done this burn. So there is an advantage to having this extrally overbuilt upper stage. It does mean that we could have gone for a smaller rocket for our launch, but then we'd have had to create the smaller rocket. So, you know, 6 and 2 3s and all that sort of stuff. So let's have a look. This transit time is going to be 133 days. I think, does that mean it should arrive at Venus before our Jupiter missions are ready to depart? So we may be able to actually show you that in either the end of this episode or the start of the Jupiter episode, which would be quite good. I also wanted to say that, yeah, my episodes for this have been getting quite long. I am aware of that. I have seen that happening. I would love your feedback on that, actually. Do you like the sort of 40-minute episodes? Would you prefer to have shorter episodes? I do have in my mind a plan for something similar to Hard and Uncut, which is going to be more of a limited series, not the full year-long series that is, but I do have something on my mind for that equivalent in RP-1. And we're going to abort that. We're going to go to Node, and we're going to use, we're going to decouple. There we go. Right. Now we're going to get ourselves into this thing here, and we've lost signal, haven't we? Right, it's okay. We can still do stuff even though we haven't got signal. Right, I need to focus view on here. Let's have a look. Do I actually have an interaction? Oh, I do. Now that's interesting. Now can I? Right. So we do not have the ability to do pretty much anything right now. We could, and if I was being really cheeky, in fact, let's do that. Let's just be cheeky. So if I do, can I do? There we go. We can actually get it to focus in on its target. There, you see, it's going to try and chase that now and just. Right, we're going to stop that. We're going to stop that. Right. So we're going to spin. So, yeah, we could potentially have got ourselves very close there. It's not a bad actual burn, is it? So we're going to send this out, and what we'll do is I will actually move forward in time to the point where we have a signal, and then we'll get on with doing this a bit more. Well, that did not take long at all. We actually got a signal within the sort of 30 minutes. That was still very close. So, because we're right over the top of Goldstone, that's why. So Goldstone is right above us. So if we put ourselves on prograde, let's put ourselves on prograde, we can actually stay zoomed in to our approach here. And we can do this the old-fashioned way. We could put a maneuver node in. As long as we keep that signal to Goldstone, though, we are golden, quite literally. Right, so that's orbital, is it? Why are we should be prograde. Is that not prograde? How is that not prograde? Oh, well, that looks prograde. Surface, target. Oh, it is there. I couldn't see it because of the edge of that. That's terrible. Right. So let's have a look. If we do some minor changes, we do a bit of that, bit of that, no, bit of that, no, bit of. There we go. Bit of forward thrust always helps get you closer to things, obviously. And then a bit of. No, that's not working for me. Bit of that one. Bit of that one. So we're now burning sort of slightly at angle. I could probably work out which way that is. I'm going to guess that we're probably radial out. In fact, you know what? Let's do radial out. Let's reposition our craft to radial out and see if that works. And I could put a maneuver node down. I'm being really lazy doing this, aren't I? There we go. It's radial. So we're just bringing that in again. We could actually just be cheeky and do that. And what we're doing now is just firing that main engine off. There we go. And then we're going to go normal positive. We're just going to continue to play around with this a little bit and see what we can do. Do a bit there. That's going the wrong way, so we'll go normal negative. And you can just do this. If you don't want to be bothered to put a maneuver node in, you can just do this. And I'm not sure it's the best way of doing it, in entirely honest, but we've got a bit of delta V to play with there, so I'm not too worried about it. Bringing this in. There we go. Until we get to a point where it starts to basically go up again. I will probably go off camera and put a maneuver node in to do this properly, but yeah, we're not doing too badly at the moment. Going in. We are using up delta V like there is no tomorrow though, so that's something we do need to be aware of. Let's have a look. Is that going to get us close enough? We should be okay. Oh, that's nice actually. That's potentially... How much delta V would it be for us to just pull that in at the last minute? Add maneuver. How much to bring that in? Yeah, more than we've got, so that's not an option. Right. I'm going to play around with this for a little bit and I will get back to you momentarily. Right, after a little play, actually not much playing around at all, after one basic little burn there, we did a little bit of radial and normal burning. And we got it down to 142 kilometers above the surface, so that's going to skim the atmosphere. We could use some of our delta V when we arrive at the Venus sphere influence, just to dip it down into the atmosphere there and get a little bit of high atmospheric, if we can remember what altitude that is. Final thing we want to do before we leave this craft is actually probably set it up to, let's have a look, discovery there. We're going to set it up to... So now somebody showed me this. You can actually go into here in devices and you can go low power. You can actually have things turned off when the power is low, which I think is a really good idea. So we're going to set this up so that when there's on low power, it's going to shut down. We're then going to say normally, that's all devices, is it? Low power it does that, high power it does that, sunlight don't care about that, shadow don't care about that, unlinked, well, we don't really care about that, linked, we don't care about that. Drive, empty, drive full, so landed, atmosphere, space, wonderful, radiation, all those things, EVA, all don't need that, action 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, don't need that, right. So we'll just put all these on and they can get going. So there we go. So this thing's going to basically now drain itself probably of battery as it's going along, I'm guessing. Let's have a little look. Does it? No, it's actually able, because we've got so few experiments actually that are doing any science. This thing's going to just tumble through space. We'll put in a marker for its next arrival. I think it should already have happened. Yeah, there we go. It's got its marker in. I am going to jump across, launch the next one. If there's nothing interesting, I'll just show you it in orbit when we're doing our transfer burn. Right, so we have made it to orbit with our second Venus probe, well, fourth Venus probe actually, but second of this set. And yeah, the launch was slightly better, so we got 72 meters per second left. A little bit, the apoapsis is a little bit high for my liking, but we will live with that. I'm going to set the maneuver up and we will get going. We're just preparing for our departure. You can see we're just turning the craft now. So in the previous departure, I had the craft turn when we created the node, just to see if there was any drift. And there was actually minimal drift with that craft. This time I noticed it also turned very quickly. So this time we've actually waited until we're on target, as it were, or about to do our departure burn. Somebody asked, why don't I do this all the time? Why don't I do the maneuver to put it on the node before departure, before I even start sort of time warping to departure node? Primarily because I'm aware that if you've got off-center sort of RCS, you can give yourself a change in apoapsis, periapsis. You can do some little alterations, which just mean that it's slightly harder to get your encounter sometimes. Particularly that was from stock KSP. But you do find it in this one as well. So there we are. We're going to do this. We're going to do the we'll do it like that again. We'll get this to do it for us. Now the interesting thing is when we do it so that the actual mech-jeb does the launch for us, it goes past the time, I noticed, which is quite interesting. Is it going to start? Oh, there we go. So now we're ullaging, and now we will stage our engines. There we go. It's actually quite interesting it does that. It goes so far in. It's almost like it counts it. Yeah, so we were like 15 seconds past the time for that there, which is interesting. Interesting little fact there. Let's see if we can do that again. With waterfall, you get that little line there. I don't know if that's waterfall or what. That's quite interesting, actually. I've noticed that. It used to be something I got with a mod when I was doing, I think it was the Reusable Space Program. There was a tank that used to do that. It used to generate, when you got close to it, you used to see that sort of thing where it was basically a sheet, a line, a surface, almost a plane that you were cutting through. Right. So we are on our way. This is good. Other questions. I think I did ask at the last departure, I think, about the length of episodes. This we will depart with this, and then we'll get its encounter, and then I'll probably leave it. Actually, we won't do much else with this episode because we are running on a bit now. But it'd be good to know your feedback. Would you prefer sort of one 50-minute episode a week, or do you prefer two sort of shorter episodes? As I said, I do have plans for something that will be a limited series, a bit like Hard and Uncut, but in the real world almost, and that may turn into something else. We also have, coming up very shortly, I will be releasing the next few episodes of season 2, 3 episodes of Express to Orbit, where we're going to do something a little different. We're not just doing rockets this time. We're going to limit ourselves even more. And actually, for season 3, I have a really interesting plan, but that's quite a way in the distance, because I have to basically, I'm waiting for RP-1 to update a little bit before I do that. So we'll see. Remember, this is still being in, I think this is 1.10 we're playing in here. RP-1 is now being prepared for 1.12. You can play it in 1.12 if you really wish to. So that is out there, and I would highly recommend people, if you know what you're doing, give it a go, see what's going on, see if you can find anything that can be improved, because they are looking now at, ironing out the bugs and things like that. So the next playthrough I probably do will be a preliminary one in 1.12 to try and make sure it's working. And then a longer series will probably end up being 1.12. I don't know how much longer this series has in it. I don't know what the aims for this series should be, whether we should restart, because there's lots that we could potentially be adding. Right. We are now going to have to refine this a bit, are we? I'm actually going to, let's just decouple that straight away. There we go, get that done, get that sorted. Now we can actually, while this is doing its thing, we can actually have a look here, can't we? And we can focus view and see if it's actually going to bring it in at all. Oh, let's see what it does actually if we just leave it. Will it bring it closer? Right, okay. That's as close as it's going to get. Right. What I will do is, in between episodes, I will refine this. We will take it down to a nice sort of altitude or whatnot. And then in the next episode, we'll probably be seeing our Venus visit. And we'll possibly be seeing our Jupiter launches. And also, I would really like to talk about, development plans, our next step of this. So, if you've got any ideas about what I should do for my interplanetary missions, what should we do about our actually crewed missions, because they have basically paused now. I'm waiting for some tech to increase, so we've got docking and things like that, and we've got life support, because currently we've got 2-day life support, which is pretty useless for what we want to do. So any comments, anything like that, please put it down below. Please like and all that sort of things. And from me, until next time, have a great one.